Yo, is your dog a dominant dog? Is your dog a submissive dog? How do you know? How do you fix it? Does any of it even matter? Some say no, some say of course it does. Let's see. Using my 35 years of professional dog training experience, I'm helping you better educate yourself so you can make better choices when training and raising your pet dog. This is Dog French Kisses. Alright, dominance in dogs, one of the most controversial topics in the dog training world. The dominance theory has been around for a long time. A lot of people and dog trainers are all in on it, meaning they believe it's absolutely a thing, definitely relevant, and definitely something you need to be aware of and deal with. Other people believe it doesn't exist, not even a thing. I believe it's somewhere in between. Heh. So we're going to go over a bit of the background of dominance in dogs, where it came from, what people think, and what about it may be relevant with dogs, especially you and your dog. And also why I think the truth is somewhere in between the extremes, including a breakdown of the limited studies on dominance in dogs and why you don't really need to worry about it. With the main reasons being that it is not clearly defined and it is not a static characteristic. Keep in mind throughout the video when I say dominance, I may be referring to what people consider to be dominant behavior, or I may just mean the dominance and submission relationship in general. Okay, so what are people saying is dominance? In a nutshell, the idea is that dogs are pack animals with a hierarchy from top to bottom, with the most dominant dog at the top leading the pack, and then less and less dominant dogs as we go down through the ranks. A more dominant dog will be higher in the pack rank, and the dogs below that dog will be submissive to it, down to the bottom dog in the pack. People believe that dogs will attempt to climb higher in pack rank either because they're naturally more dominant or because there's no strong leader present or an opportunity just presents itself. And then from these dog pack dynamics, people take the same ideas into their relationship with their dogs and their household and all dog-dog or dog-human interactions. Dominance is very often associated with aggression, stubbornness, and a lot of unwanted behaviors in general. Other things some people consider to be dominant behavior are barking, growling, biting, pulling on leash, walking out in front when they're off leash, eating first, going through doors and crossing thresholds first, getting up on furniture, pushy play with dogs or people, guarding, marking, chewing and destroying things, etc. And on the flip side, submissiveness or being too submissive is often associated with behavior issues as well. That could be general, shy, or scared behavior, submissive peeing, rolling over to show their belly, the submissive grin, which a lot of people think is an aggressive thing. So to be clear, these are not what I believe. These are just ideas that are out there. A lot of these are very common and very strongly associated with dominance beliefs. It gets complicated pretty quickly because people might see the behaviors themselves as an unwanted behavior, or they might see something as unwanted purely because they associate it with a dominance issue. And then when it's both, people really freak out because then it's not just the bad behavior itself, we got a dominance issue on top of it. For example, maybe your dog is guarding its food bowl. That's a common issue and a serious issue, and it needs to be addressed appropriately because somebody could get hurt. So there's the problem behavior, which is guarding. And then on top of that, if you believe that it's happening because your dog is dominant, or you or someone else haven't been dominant enough over your dog, now you got a double whammy. 2 problems in one, a guarding problem and a dominance problem. Another example, maybe your dog pees when you or someone approaches it. Maybe it's all the time, maybe it's in certain situations, and let's just assume that the dog is potty trained. So problem 1, the dog is peeing in the house or wherever. pee in the carpet or flooring, on furniture, whatever it might be. Not cool and not good. But if your view is that this is a dominance issue, meaning your dog is too submissive somehow, now you got two problems in one again. So apply this to any unwanted behavior and you are stacking issues by default. I don't suggest you do that. The idea that some trainers will try to sell you is that if you have a dominance issue and you can get rid of it, then your other issues will be easier to deal with or just go away. And that sounds great. If your dog pulls on leash and guards its bowl and growls at people, and you could remedy one overarching problem, dominance, that could fix all those other problems, that's way better. But the question is, can we actually do that? No, because dominance is not just one thing. As I said earlier, dominance is not clearly defined and it is not a static characteristic. So where do these ideas come from? I'm not going to dive into the entire history of it, but if you like to, hop on a search and you'll see a bunch of pretty much the same information. Wolves were studied in random groups in captivity and were observed violently defending resources and their position within the pack rank, which prioritized access to resources. Then, wolves were studied in the wild in their natural habitat and pack makeup, and similar behaviors were observed. But the more we studied wolves in the wild, we saw that pack dynamics and the behaviors between dominant and submissive pack members are not simply violent acts to secure resources for that individual, nor is there a constant push to move up and up in the pack ranking. Packs are mostly families, and the rules, if you will, that govern the pack are there to ensure pack survival. Violence resulting in injuries or death would be detrimental to the pack. Constant and or severe power struggles would be detrimental to the pack. And perhaps most importantly for dog owner dominance concepts, dominance and pack rank is more fluid and nuanced and varied than common knowledge has told us. Now the big question is, does wolf behavior help us with dog behavior? Short answer, sure, it can tell us things, but how about just studying dogs? Wolf studies in the 20th century, unfortunately, have shaped how we view dogs and the dominance relationship with canines. And whatever truth we've found when it comes to wolves or dogs have gotten mixed up and muddied, and now the common knowledge is way off. Now, before I go on, yes, dogs are a subspecies of the gray wolf. Yes, they can interbreed and are obviously closely related, so yes, they look alike and behave similarly, but they are not the same. Dogs have been domesticated for thousands of years. I've read best guesses are from 10,000, even up to 100,000 years. Regardless, it's been a really long time and they have developed an immense amount. Another side note to keep in mind, we have created these categories. We have labeled one animal as one thing and another animal as another thing, or a similar thing, or a not similar thing. Now, obviously, we are the ones using the scientific method to study the world. So I'm not trying to be anti-science. Point is, whether we deep dive into biology, ethology, etc., or we keep it more surface with just simpler observations, all information can be good information and help us out. But we all know dogs are not wolves. So, dominance and packs and hierarchies in dogs. What have we found? We'll get there. Let's start off with the definition of dominance. There's different ones that don't apply, but the ones that do are social and ecological. Both definitions are basically controlling the group. The dominant figure controls the social or ecological community. So I said before that dominance in dogs is not clearly defined. But if we just define dominance generally and we apply that to dogs, which would be a dog that controls the group, then am I wrong about having a clear definition? Yes and no. Yes, because I just said it. The dominant dog, as we all probably think of it, is the one who controls the pack. No surprise there. But I say no because that's not the issue that we're having with dominant behavior in dogs. I mean, I'm sure some people think that, but is your dog literally controlling your family? And to be totally open here, we do have a definition. It's the one I just said. It's the same thing we all probably have in our heads. The dominant dog is the alpha, the leader, the one in charge, the one in control, right? But this is the key here. That description is not part of a pet dog's life. They are not even capable of having control over the social or ecological groups that they are a part of. Dogs are not trying to take over, they're not trying to dominate us. There is no evidence that dogs have an aim at leading the pack when they're living in a comfy, modern lifestyle, having all of their needs met. And even when all their needs aren't being met, they then exhibit behaviors that help meet their needs or are a symptom of not being met. Think about things like hyperactivity, chewing things up, running away. Outside of simply not having been trained better, these are common problems that we see when a dog's needs aren't being met. It doesn't mean you have a dominant dog. It's your dog doing its best to make its life better because you're not. Or maybe it's not a needs thing. Maybe they just learned that doing this behavior works better for them. Super, super common. So, when I say we don't have a clear definition, I'm referring to quote unquote dominant behavior. What is that? Of course, some people are going to give you a list, and that proves the point immediately. Dominance, or a dominant dog, means nothing to us without the behavior to match. And dominant behavior is not just one thing, it's a collection of things. It's a group of behaviors that are potentially tied to dominance. Dominance in dogs is a construct, a theory, a concept, an idea, which is why I say dominance in dogs is not clearly defined. Oh, we have a dominant dog? What does that mean? The dog is exhibiting dominant behaviors? What are those? It's growling at certain times, it's not listening to cues, it's being aggressive towards dogs or people, or other behaviors associated with being dominant? Have we considered all the reasons this dog might be doing each one of these behaviors? Did we exhaust every avenue to remedy those reasons, to see if that unwanted behavior stops? No, of course we didn't. It's just dominance. It's a dominant dog. It's dominating. Dog trainers told me not to let dogs dominate. Never mind the history of canine ethology, animal learning theory, or clear advice from credentialed experts in fields that directly apply to dog training, who themselves own and train dogs who never have issues with dominance. Come the fuck on, man. Hopefully you understand my silly tones and you're getting my point here. But we're not done yet. The other thing I said is that dominance is not a static characteristic. This is seen in the data on both wolf and dog packs if you care. Again, one definition of dominance, or the dominant one, is the one with the top rank controlling the group. But what we're seeing most of the time in dogs is behavior issues that some people call dominance. What's really applicable to dogs is more subtle behavior where one dog defers to another. It happens all the time. It keeps the peace as nature intended, just like wolves. And if a problem does happen, it's very unlikely to be a dominance issue. To be dominant, another has to submit. Let's say you got two dogs, they walk up to a bone at the same time. One dog turns its head or stops moving for a second or whatever. The other dog picks up the bone and they move on with their lives. The dog with the bone is the dominant one. The other is the submissive one in this scenario. That's how it plays out. Dogs have preferences and we see it in their behavior. Some dogs don't care so much about chews or toys or whatever. Others do. The dominant-submission relationships are fluid. They change. And of course, with food, space, more important things, sometimes we'll see stronger reactions. But it's usually just more ingrained behavior problems. Or maybe we do see the same submission playing out every time with dogs that we're around a lot. Maybe then you could say that that dog is the dominant one over the other when it comes to X, Y, or Z thing. That dog is dominant over the other with balls, with toys, with food, whatever. Maybe it's everything. Maybe you're sure one of them is the dominant one.
Okay, so what?
There may be dogs that are more or less outgoing, more or less into certain things, right? Pushier or more passive personalities or breeds. Maybe it's innate in them, or maybe it comes from past experience. But calling a dog dominant or submissive not only doesn't tell us much, it doesn't help us. Boil your dog training down to what you want and what you don't want and train them. Is it a dominant dog, or is it worried it's going to lose the resource? Is it a dominant dog, or does it have bad manners? Is it a submissive dog, or is it afraid of something? Is it a submissive dog, or has that behavior worked to keep the peace in the past? Take a big step back from the ideology and be pragmatic and practical. Now, before I wrap this up, let's look at what the data says about dominance in dogs from the studies that have been done on dominance in dogs. So there are not a ton of studies on this specific subject. And I wanted recent info, so I looked at 20 studies that were done over the last 15 years. And I could barely find much more than that. A few notes first. So I was pretty surprised by some things. There were several studies that used owner surveys to determine a dominant versus a submissive dog, and that's pretty wacky considering the common knowledge on the subject itself. Several studies looked for certain behaviors as indicators of dominance or submission, behaviors that definitely could have multiple other reasons behind them. But the cool thing about proper science is they mention in the studies the potential flaws in the way they did things. One study was a compilation of a bunch of other studies, and it basically concluded that we can't agree on dominance because the parameters of all these studies are so different, we can't draw conclusions by comparing the data. But I didn't use any of these studies I just mentioned in the breakdown that I'm about to give you. Those were just the extras. One of the main elements you should know is the separation of dominant and submissive behaviors, either as a display for rank and resources or as an actual issue between dogs where there's a fight to some degree, and then the winner is the dominant one. A huge part of all of this is that submission is the key, contrary to the idea that humans or dogs need to impose their dominance on dogs. Like I said, I looked at 20 recent studies, and the results definitely didn't fit perfectly with the bias that I had going in. And I love that because it confirmed the general idea I had, but I got a deeper understanding for sure. So I put together the 7 things that were the most common findings across all 20 studies. The one that recurred the most is that agonistic dominance, which is the fighting I just mentioned, was not present at all or barely happened, so it wasn't relevant. The next was that dominance relationships are dyadic, meaning it's something between 2 dogs. Next was that submissive behaviors were the majority over dominant behaviors. Next was that dominance and submission are not personality traits, they are qualities of a relationship. The next 2 were equally as common, which is that pet dogs showed no dominance relationships, and that dominance is age-related, with older dogs being the more dominant ones. And number 7 was that leadership specifically was something that either changed among dogs or was just not connected to the dominance relationships at all. Some other notable takeaways. Kind of like I said earlier, it's harder to get objective results when a dog's value of a resource is subjective. And resources are obviously thought to be a big part of this. There's also been dog packs observed with an egalitarian style, meaning there's no dominance, they just share everything. Another one is that dominance is a complex thing and a changeable thing. And my last interesting note is that those labeled dominant dogs were easier to train, easier to control, and more reliant on their owner. That's really interesting because a lot of people's idea of a dominant dog is more independent, more stubborn, and we generally associate behavior issues with dominant dogs. So to conclude this one, because I know there's been a lot of info and maybe a lot of it is new or different than what you thought, what is my advice? I do not think about dominance, and I don't think you should either. It is literally not part of my life with dogs. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Or look into it more, find the studies, do some research, dive right in. You'll probably end up not worrying about it. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Watch my other videos and stay up.